Hey guys, my name is Wildcard and welcome back to my channel. This is Super Rugby AU Final, Queensland Reds versus ACT Brumbies Preview. So, the two teams have met two times prior to the finals during the regular season, and both times the Reds have managed a comeback win, very close, clutch comeback wins to beat the Brumbies, both away and at home. Now, the game is going to be very, very close. One of the games that was played, the first game when the Reds played Brumbies at Canberra, that was probably one of the best Super Rugby games I have ever seen. It was back and forward. The final score was 40 points to 38 with a last minute try by the Reds from Patea, a grubber kick behind the goalpost. Was just like magnificent finish for the Reds to win by 2 points against the Brumbies. And then the second game when it was played in Queensland, that was a much closer game. I think the final score was, let's have a look. The final score was 24-22. So again, there was only a 2 point difference between the two teams. So going into the finals, this is gonna be the big game. Well, the bookkeepers has it favored to the Reds. I think it's $1.90 for the Reds and $2.40 for the $1.58 for the Reds and $2.40 for the Brumbies. And I mean, I think it's probably closer than that. Like there's only a 2 points difference for both the games, and the fact that Brumbies have, Brumbies could definitely win the game. It's much closer than the bookies have it. I think they're only giving a bit more edge to the Reds because it's away. But honestly, it doesn't seem to bother the Brumbies very much being away in Queensland. Now let's have a look at the lineup. The Reds has made a few changes that's kind of important. Number one is that Paisami is injured. Hunter Paisami is injured, so Fluke is in. Fluke has played a couple games in place of Paisami a few rounds ago. I think it was 2 rounds ago. Might be against Brumbies the previous time where Paisami was injured. Yeah, I think the game Reds play Brumbies at home, I think Paisami was injured. So it's not the first time Fluke is playing at starting, and it's not the first time I think he's played against Brumbies either as a starting player. So it's a big, I think it's a big loss for the Reds, but it's definitely manageable. The captain has gone back to James O'Connor for the Reds. Last week they had Harry Wilson, I think he was, as the captain, and then I thought it was poorly managed towards the end of the game. It was not last week, 2 weeks ago against the Western Force, where they lost. I thought that was a poor captain's decisions were made by Harry. So it's good to see that O'Connor's got the captaincy back. Let's go through the list and see what the main points are. So a fullback is Bryce Hegarty for the Reds against Tom Banks. I think Tom Banks is a little bit better at Bryce Hegarty in terms of kicking. He has bigger kicking range, bigger and faster. Tom Banks is quite in form. He's probably one of the very likely persons to score tries against the Reds. Jordan Patea at number 14 against Andy Muirhead. Muirhead's pretty good too. Patea's pretty good. Patea has worked a lot to improve his ball carrying. Patea is really good. I think better at center. Because Patea's really good at creating space for other players and like stick his hand out and offload. He can literally draw like 3 players and still somehow get his hand free and get the ball off. So, but he's playing at blindside winger against Andy Muirhead. Joshua Fluke, as I mentioned, in place for Hunter Paisami in outside center against Len Ikitau. Hamish Stewart, inside center Hamish Stewart against Eri Simone, the Brumbies centre. Jock Campbell is the Reds open side winger. I probably thought Dargunu would be a better place than Jock. But obviously Brad Thorne thought that Jock Campbell would be a better starting player against Tom Wright. Tom Wright is very, very in form right now. He was instrumental in beating the Western Force in the semi-finals. Every time he gets the ball, he's super, super dangerous. And he's like really fast, really agile. It's just probably like the best form he's probably been in his career, actually. He's absolutely incredible, Tom Wright. He's probably the most likely person to score a try for the Brumbies, second to... and Tom Banks is probably the second player. And so Jock Campbell, he used to play fullback. Yeah, Bryce Hegarty usually comes on for James O'Connor, I think. Yeah, this is an interesting setup. This is a bit of an interesting setup for the Reds backline. I am not 100% convinced. All these players are kind of out of position. Patea, he played pretty much the first half of the season as center, and only in the last, I think it's like towards the second half of the season, he's only started playing wing. And Hegarty has always been coming off the bench. Campbell used to be at fullback. So, yeah. I'm not too sure about the Reds backline. Whereas the Brumbies backline has been pretty steady throughout this whole season. And this is a very dangerous setup for the Reds. Nola Lasia at 10. His kicking is pretty good. James O'Connor at 10. His kicking is also spectacular. So I wouldn't expect much... I wouldn't expect too much difference in terms of the kicking percentage. Tate McDermott, he's probably going to be the starting... He's probably looking to prove himself to be the starting Wallabies halfback, whereas over Nick White. So this will be a good contest. Nick White's kicking has been pretty off, like in terms of his box kicking, has been pretty off a little bit. So he really needs to lift that up a bit. And Tate McDermott, they kind of play in a similar style where they're really like fast at the breakdown and try to like take when they see gaps in front of them, they will take quick runs. And they both kind of play similarly, but Tate McDermott has been more effective when doing so. Like he's actually scored tries just from the breakdown, whereas I don't think Nick White has scored tries just by picking up the ball, running around the breakdown. So Tate McDermott is, I would say, definitely slightly ahead of Nick White for now. Now the 4-pack. This is the meat grinder of the game. This is the colossal clash. You know, it's Goliath versus Goliath. Okay, there's no David here in this contest. Okay, so we have Theo Futuaika. I can't pronounce his name. My apologies if I can't pronounce your name. Scott Seo, Brandon Payanga Amosa, Lachlan Nolligan, and Alan Alatoa up against and Daniel Tupou. So this is a bit of a change for the Brumbies. Scott Seo is on. Last time they played the Reds, they had who was it? Jem Slipper on. I think Slipper's injured. Slipper might have an injury, so it'll be a bit of a test for Scott Seo. Daniel Tupou has been a god for the entire season up until they played against Western Force, where he actually lost scrum tight head feeds. It's like the first time in the season he's lost scrums to another team. So it'll be interesting to see how this matchup go again. And once again, Alan Alatoa and Daniel Tupou is fighting for the starting position for the Wallabies, obviously. But although, to say that starting position, I do think Daniel Tupou is better than Alan Alatoa, but I do think Daniel Tupou is even better off the bench for the Wallabies. So even if it comes down to the fact that Tupou is a better number 3, better tight head, but I still think Tupou is better off the bench because having him up against like the opposition reserve or up against another tight head prop who's tired, it's just like game over. Whereas he's just has such a huge like burst of energy into the team, it's just game over for the opposition. Whereas if you have if you just have him play the whole game or starting at the game, against the starting tight head prop from another international team like the New Zealand one, it's probably going to be So if you just go up against like the like a fresh tight head prop, then he's probably not gonna have that much of an edge. So even though I do think Tupou is a better tight head for the Wallabies, but I think he's even better off the bench. Yeah, so that's my opinion. Ryan Smith a lock, Lucan Salah Kai Lotto, another lock against Darcy Swang and Caden Neville. And so this tie fight, we'll have to see how this turn out. I do think that the Reds have a little bit of edge over the Brumbies here. Number 6, Angus Scott Yarn against, and then I think he will be up against Rory Scott at number open side. Fraser McRae open side against blindside Nick Frost. Open side against open side. Yeah, so Angus Scott Yarn against Nick Frost, Fraser McRae versus Rory Scott. So, yeah, I do think maybe the Reds second rowers just finish this whole thing first. Harry Wilson, Rob Valentini, number 8. I do think the Reds loose forwards might be a little bit better than the Brumbies, but the Brumbies youngsters have played really, really well in the last few weeks. They are definitely not a pushover, for instance. So maybe the 4-pack has a bit of edge to the Reds, but I think the back line is definitely the Brumbies has more going for it, especially with people playing out of position. I'm a little bit worried for this back line, to be honest. Especially when it comes to defense. Patea, yeah, I'm not sure if the defense can hold up. Because I don't think Jock Campbell is that good at that. Not to like bash him, but from memory, I remember him missing a few tackles. So I'm not too sure about this backline defense from the Reds. Interesting. Anyway, the replacements: Alex Murphy, he's really, really good hooker. Zane Zander, Zane Noga, Seru Uru. Uru is on the bench for some reason. I thought he would be starting. Liam Wright, again on the bench. I thought he would be starting. Kalani Thomas, Isaac Henry, Filippo Daguno. Again, Filippo, I thought he would be starting as well. So obviously the Reds is looking at finishing strong in the second half. So the Brumbies has a history of coming out really, really strong. When they're fresh, their execution is like sublime. And they just put points on the board for you. They will like do a maul, and it'll be a try from the maul. If the maul doesn't score a try, they will just have like a backline play, and then Tom Wright or Tom Banks will go over. So the Brumbies' execution when they're fresh in the first half is absolutely spectacular. But in second half, the Brumbies tends to fall off a bit, whereas the Reds kind of like the opposite. They kind of like flail a little bit in the first half, and then in the second half they kind of pull together and like really start to dominate the breakdowns, dominate the scrums. Usually Reds win from the forward pack. So the second half, the 4-pack really starts to dominate, especially with Tupou on the field. And that's when Reds kind of like pull back in most of the... That's basically how the Reds won against Brumbies, both of their previous matchups. They were losing badly in the first half and then slowly called themselves back and won the game at the very end of the second half. So this might be the plan for Brad Thorne here. He's got a lot of quite a lot of star power in the bench. For the Brumbies, they have Folau Fainga. Oh yeah, they have Folau Fainga. Who's not in number 2. What? I didn't even notice that. I thought Fainga would be starting. He wasn't he the captain? Anyway, Harrison Lloyd, Tom Ross, Henry Stewart, Luke Reimer, Ryan Lonergan, Risija Pasitoa, and Mackenzie Hansen. Yeah, so maybe Brumbies also looking at steady the boat a little bit with a bit more experience on the bench to steady like the second half a bit. But I do think that, yeah. You know what? If I was to, I am a Reds fan. I am not confident the Reds going to win this game. I am not that confident with the setup. We'll have to wait and see, but I am not confident that the Reds might win this one. Anyway, the what else is there to talk about? Don't need that. We just want to have a look at this. Yeah, so the Reds in the last 2 matches, 2 points difference in both matches. The Reds has an undefeated season, lost the last game against the Force. They switched the captaincy around, and there was a bad decision towards the end of the game, which led to their loss. They could have had a draw at least, or taken it to overtime, but that was bad decision. And Brumbies has been undefeated against every team except the Reds. So they've only lost to the Reds and only lost by 2. Overall, the Reds throughout the season has been very inconsistent, despite the fact that they've been winning every game except again they lost only 1 game. Despite the fact they only lost 1 game, they've been very inconsistent throughout the season. There's a lot of handling errors, a lot of there was at one point they were giving away a lot of penalties. So the Reds had a lot of tidy up to do throughout the season, and they got a lot better towards the end of the season. But it's not to say that they did have a history of giving away a lot of penalties and drop balls, handling errors. Whereas the Brumbies has been very, very steady throughout the entire season. There's very few errors, very clean, crisp execution, and they've actually got better and cleaner as season carried on. So yeah, so the Reds and Brumbies, it's a very tough one to call. I hate to say this, but I feel like the Reds might lose this one. I'm not confident. I think that Force game really showed that there are some questionable decision making. And that Force game, the backline that played against the Force game is pretty much the same setup as the Reds today. And that was not a very good backline setup compared to what the Reds previously had, in my opinion. And especially with Hunter Paisami injured, I think I'm gonna have to say the Brumbies might take this one. We'll see what happens. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching this video. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you on Saturday night after the game. And thanks for watching. Cheers.